What is up, football fans? I am Danny Austin. This is the Live from the 55 podcast. I am coming at you on Sunday, July 16th, I'm pretty sure, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, here in our Marta Loop studios. Thank you to the Nation Network. Super excited to be here. Honestly, I'm also coming at you at the tail end of what was an absolutely wild weekend of CFL football. Saturday in particular, between the Red Blacks and Bombers, and then the Stampeders and Riders just delivered up two absolute classics. I also love the Toronto Montreal game. There was a lot to love. This is kind of the type of weekend where, as a CFL fan, you just wonder, why doesn't everyone love this league the way I do? Just an absolute blast. Again, headache. Can barely talk. I'm just tired. I didn't do any stampeding. I'm just here talking CFL. Can't wait. And we've got a couple pretty great guests today. First up is going to be my good friend Jamie Nye, coming at you from CJME in Regina, host of the Green Zone. You know, if you follow the CFL, you know Jamie. He's as smart a fella as you get. When I said fella like that, a lot of regrets already. But yeah, Jamie's the smartest, and we're just going to kind of break down what we saw last night between the Riders and the Stamps, and what was an absolutely wild game. It was one of those ones where I was sort of grateful that right now the pressures of the job aren't too much, because if that had been on a tight deadline, I would have had trouble. After that, Ryan Ballantine, he's down in Florida. We've had him on a bunch of times. 3 Down Nation writer, host of the Go Stamps Go podcast, good friend of mine. And middle of the game, he was like, man, I got to talk to you about this. So we're going to have him on. That'll probably be a little bit of a shorter one, but excited to have both of those guys on. Who knows? Maybe they'll cross over. But yeah, really excited. Let's talk football, because honestly, what a weekend. And I gotta be honest here. We're all about accountability here in the Live from the 55 studios. And if you listen to Thursday's podcast, I had my dear friend Ian Busby on, and man, like, we look like a bunch of idiots now. We were saying, they're like, oh man, these games stink this weekend. I don't want to watch it. I want to go to Stampede. I have to watch Winnipeg and Ottawa. It's going to be a massacre. Oh, Toronto Montreal is the only good game this weekend. Like, and man, like, do we ever look like a bunch of nerdlingers now? Because these games were honestly so much fun. You start with Hamilton Edmonton. I do think that Hamilton putting up 37 points on these Elks is sort of the big story there. No, I don't. I think the big story there is just that the Elks are making everyone pretty sad right now. They haven't won a game. It's very concerning what's happening there in Edmonton. I'm worried about that market. I'm worried about that team. I'm worried about that organization. Hate seeing it happen, man. Honestly, I think that there was a while there where everyone was like, look how wild it is that we have this this extended home losing streak. And now you just begin to worry, because that's a community-owned team in an important market for the CFL, traditionally one of the best fan bases. It sucks, but it also is, a couple weeks ago, Hamilton looked absolutely hopeless. They've won a couple now. It's about wins and losses at the end of the day, 37-29. No complaints there. Yeah, I like that Hamilton is not just sort of going gently into the night, and that we're seeing them put up a little bit of a fight here. I'm kind of speeding through these here, because we do have a packed show. But Toronto 35, Montreal 27. I think this sort of, for right now, reestablishes the Toronto Argonauts as the top team in the league right now. I would be a little bit more hesitant to say that if they hadn't smashed up the BC Lions a couple weeks ago. But, they're now 4-0, and they're going up against, or they went up against an Alouettes team that I think most of us consider to be the second best team in the East. Probably not quite as convinced that they're really Grey Cup contenders, but they've done a lot. I've liked a lot of what Cody Fajardo does, beyond taking 1 million sacks. I thought that defense was pretty decent. I thought the Alouettes were going to put up a fight, and they did. And I mean, that's kind of the big takeaway here for me is, yeah, they lost by 8, but that was a pretty tight game for the most part. They were leading at halftime 10-7. You're not always going to beat the best team in the league, and I think the Alouettes put up a fight. They stayed in there. Yeah, they've lost 3 in a row now. That's not ideal, but they're still sitting. They're still second in the East. Ticats are 2-3. Alouettes are 2-3. Red Blacks are 2-3. It's not great. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, wow, look at this amazing division. But look, I think the Alouettes are showing game in and game out that they can go out there and put up a fight. And that's what early season CFL is about. It's about positioning yourself for a run in the back half. We've seen that again and again. And Yeah, it ultimately that was a really fun game. I know I saw some people be like, "Oh, it was only fun at the end. The scoreline doesn't." It's like, I don't know, man. Like, do you watch Jurassic Park and say, "Oh, I love the Tyrannosaurus attack. I love the Raptors attack, but everything else was terrible." Like, no, like Jurassic Park because it's a good movie and this was a good game. There's lots of action, lots of scoring. I love it. Can't just pick and choose and say, "Oh yeah, there were some terrible drives. There were some stretches where there weren't a lot of offense." Kick rocks. That's my opinion. This was a fun CFL game. 35-27, and we're complaining. Come on. Get out of town. And then though, Saturday, what a day. I'm still recovering. You know, Ottawa Red Blacks. Like, what do you say? 31-28 win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That would be a big story. That would be a fun story. That would be an amazing accomplishment. Um, in any case, but doing it the way that the Red Blacks did it, you're using what, your fourth string quarterback pretty much. Mazzoli's out. Tari Adams is out. They didn't go with Arbuckle. And then comes Dustin Crum. You're down 25-17. You lead that drive to get into overtime. And then you just, scamper in for the game-winning touchdown on OT. Dustin Crum, I don't know if you're ever going to do another thing in the CFL. I hope you do. Hope you have a long career here. But even if you didn't, we'll remember you for that because that was awesome. And I will be honest with you, like I was there were points where I was turning that game off because I just thought the Bombers are in such control. Um, I have been told that, we all love the Winnipeg reporters, and I genuinely do, but there's too much pro Winnipeg on this podcast, which is hilarious because the Bombers fans traditionally on Twitter, I'll just claim that I'm anti Winnipeg. But I think that team deserves a ton of respect. I still think that they're very much a contender, but this type of thing didn't happen to that Bombers team. Very much the last couple of years. And I want to, focus on the Red Blacks because I think that it's such a big win for Ottawa. Again, there's no three teams that are 2-3. The Red Blacks could very easily, make a playoff push here. They are not out of it. But this is a game that me and Ian Busby sat here and just ripped on, just made fun of. We laughed at. I couldn't be happier to be wrong. I apologize to everyone in Ottawa who might be listening. That's a great that was just a great story. It was so much fun. Couldn't believe it as I was seeing it. Still can't believe it, but I absolutely love it. You know, they showed me a lot. I am very impressed by the Ottawa Red Blacks. They are showing a lot of resolve. They're showing a lot of fight, a lot of resilience. It's exactly what you want from your football team. And if I was a Red Blacks fan, I'd be very excited. Then to finish off the weekend, finish off the night, Saturday night here in Calgary, I was watching from my couch as the Stampeders somehow survived a 33-31 game. We are going to talk about this with Jamie and I, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but the twists and turns here, it would take me all podcast to go down. I honestly had my story written, then was absolutely panicking. When Mason Fine coming in relief of Trevor Harris, who we all hope is okay. Our thoughts were with Trevor Harris. That was a scary, likely knee injury, leg either way, but Trevor Harris is one of the good guys. He's an ambassador for the league. We all love Trevor Harris, and I really liked what he was doing in Saskatchewan. And who knows? Maybe we see him back this season. Maybe it's just a bad twist. But either way, Trevor Harris is. I'm a big fan, big supporter of his. He's been good for the league, and it sucked to see him go down like that. You kind of thought the game was over, but then Mason Fine comes in. It was just great, and that heave to Tevin Jones. To be honest with you, I don't know how we caught it. I don't know how the Stampeders didn't just knock that ball down. But for them to take the lead sort of with a minute to go in the game, I think all of us thought it was over. It just felt like the Stampeders aren't going to catch a break this season. That is, honestly, I was like, I guess I got to switch the story up and write a Stampeders lose story. And then I do think Jake Mayer deserves credit. The totality of his numbers, I think, were pretty good. But one way or another, for him to get into field position, and there is a debate over who the greatest field goal kicker of all time is here in the CFL. That's fine. I wrote it on Twitter. I was like, let's have the debate. It's fun. That's what we're doing here. This is sports. There's no resentment from me. I just know that I've never seen better than Rene Paredes, and he has now kicked 10 last-second game-winning field goals in his career. This one from 50 yards. There's just no one I'd rather have it on their boot than Rene Paredes when the game's on the line. Absolutely incredible. Stampeders badly needed that win. It pushes them to 2-3. Feels like the whole league's at 2-3 right now. But it also means that we're going to probably have a game in October where the season series, could be on the line between the Stamps and Riders. Add some intrigue there. But that game was absolutely wild. It's all the twists and turns. I mean, the Stamps and Riders have played twice. I like the way these teams match up. Stamps have a lot of work to do on special teams. The offense still has to improve, but that was honestly, if that's your spotlight game Saturday night, hopefully, the country's watching down on CBS. Some American fans are watching. That is what you want. I loved it. It was so much fun. Wish I could have been there in the stadium. Thoughts with Trevor Harris, but I'm all in, man. This was the kickstart this league needed. Feels like we're really going. And outside of knowing that the Argos are good, I think I did this whole 3-tier system. I'm not sure that's where we're at anymore. I'm not going to put the Ottawa Red Blacks down in that 3rd tier with the Edmonton Elks. I can't do it. That's not right for me to do. The Ottawa Red Blacks have proved they deserve better than that. Sorry, when there are 1, 2, 3 counting, should have had this up. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams at 2 and 3, another at 3 and 2. If you're the Red Blacks, you're not in that tier 3. I know everyone cares about my tier system, but right now I pretty much have the Argos at number 1, Lions right there with them. I don't know. There's like 8 tiers. This whole tier thing it's a silly way of breaking it down. But anyways, we have Jamie and I here. Before we get to that, I do want to just quickly shout out Fraser and Fig. I do this every episode. I keep saying that I'm going to get a charcuterie board to bring in and show you guys. I've had one. I had a picnic a few weeks back. It's delicious. What a treat that would be for me to have a Fraser and Fig charcuterie board. These guys do these elevated cheese and charcuterie boxes. They're made with fresh artisanal provisions. You pick up, you can do delivery, just let them know. They make them for you. They come in 4 sizes. You got a little single ones for guys like me, and you got much bigger ones for a party or whatever. These really are amazing. Every box comes with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, and carrots. And honestly, their selections do vary month to month, so you're not stuck having the same thing every time or anything like that. Although that wouldn't be so bad, because I am not kidding. These charcuterie boxes are great. I will say that I am going to have one of these. I'm going to bring one in. I'm going to eat it. Both John Bender and Ian Busby, regular guests, want to have one. So maybe we're just going to get a big one, because those are big boys. Those guys can eat. So we are going to do that at some point. I'm not sure it's great podcasting, but we are a YouTube show as well. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you can find your podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Anyways, let's go over to Jamie and I, because I want to get this sort of the Riders' perspective or the Saskatchewan perspective on what happened between Calgary Stampeders and the Saskatchewan Roughriders last night. Jamie and I, the Prince of Regina, the Prince of the Prairies. I know.
That's not what my listeners call me.
No, what do they call you? What do they call you? Send your listeners over to me.
After picking the Calgary Stampeders to beat the Riders yesterday, they were calling me all sorts of things. Traitor was what the favorite one. Traitor. But hey, I was right.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I mean, you're right, except like the path that it took to get there, no one could have predicted.
It was fun. It was a blast. The path it took to get there. It was like all week the CFL had some dandy football games outside of the Elks in Hamilton, but then everywhere else it was insanity.
So like I've covered some like 2016 to 2018. The Stampeders were obviously like sort of the powerhouse, an amazing like machine that just everything clicked. I'm beginning to think it's a lot more fun to actually cover a team that's not quite as good as that. That just because like every game I have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, the fun of the Rough Riders is just that. Like the last couple of years, it had like content for a show host. It's gimme putts after gimme putts to walk into work and go, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. We're going to talk about Chris Jones doing something ridiculous with the football operations. Oh, we're going to talk about Chris Jones and the decision he made at quarterback. Oh, we're going to talk about a fight between Duron Carter and somebody else and Derek Dennis getting sent out of town. Okay, what else are we going to? Oh, Chris Jones is going to Cleveland. Okay, now what are we going to talk about?
Like 2 days after signing an extension, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, not 2 days, but pretty darn close. But
a week
like this last 6 seasons since Chris Jones started, it has been nothing but maybe not fun for Rider fans because there's been a lot of disappointment, but it has been an easy team to cover because there's never a week you go into practice saying, what's the story this week? It's pretty much given to you every single time.
I will also say that, like, yeah, there's been disappointments. Like, obviously, I've seen that from the outside. And yeah, the thing with the disappointment in Saskatchewan is that everyone else delights in it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like that team in what? It would have been 2019. Was that the West Final in Regina that I came out for?
Yeah, that was the clank off the upright against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The
Yeah,
year
they
Cody
couldn't have been
Fajardo.
closer to the Grey Cup. Like they last year was obviously not great, but like they've been close.
Well, yeah, they went to back-to-back West Finals with Cody Fajardo and Craig Dickinson. So that's why I'm like, some people are already calling for Dickinson and O'Day to be fired yet again. But I'm like, what did you want O'Day to do? You wanted O'Day to go get a quarterback. He got Trevor Harris. You wanted to improve the offensive line. He got Philip Blake and Peter Godber. You want him to improve the receiving core. He got Sean Bain Jr., who looks like a breakout guy, and Darrell Walker. Now, unfortunately, 90% of those guys are hurt. But Jeremy O'Day doesn't determine who gets injured during a season.
Just because I'm obviously Calgary based, I knew Sean Bain was going to be good. Like he in Calgary last year, every time he got a chance, it's just he was behind Malik Henry, so he didn't get many chances. But he has been, like, you've watched him up close. He looks like the star that we think he is.
Yeah, I think so. Like they barely used him until like one drive, and all of a sudden he picked up like 30 yards or 40 yards just like that. And I'm like, what where is this? Like why haven't you been going to Sean Bain and make him an integral part of your offense, which was confusing for the Riders and Kelly Jeffrey. But and plus I love the guy, like the personality of Sean Bain. Like right when he came in, like he came into Saskatchewan, he did a bunch of public events before even training camp, and fans were like, I met Sean Bain Jr. This guy is awesome. He's a really nice guy. And it's like, yeah, that he is. So
I loved covering him. And to be honest, like with him, and I'd say Mike Rose was a little bit like this too, when Mike Rose was behind Micah Johnson on the depth chart. Like Mike Rose clearly could have played in any other city other than Calgary or like any other team. And Sean Bain was like that, like probably other than backing up Malik Henry, he would have been a starter on any other team. And he was like, I'm not saying he was cool with it, but it never got him down. He never became a problem. So it's really cool to see him get that shot and kind of take it.
Yeah, he's kind of this should be the centerpiece of this offense, really, with all the other injuries going on. And before, you can use him in so many different ways, right? So
I will say that, I mean, centerpiece of the offense, but if the Riders are playing the Stampeders, they should just get the Stamps to kick the ball a lot, and Mario Alford will just destroy. Like, I don't know what is going on with the Stampeders special teams. And because the stats aren't updated, like going into this week, the Stampeders had allowed 5 big play returns. No other team had allowed 3. And then they allowed Alford 2 kick return touchdowns, which literally are the only reason the Riders were in that game. Like in the fourth quarter. I mean,
well, it was 14 of their first 17 points were punt return touchdowns. Like it was 20-3 when you talk about like offense, defense. Now special teams is a part of the game and it happened. Right. So, and
Alford's Mario amazing, Alford, man. That guy, the way he hits holes is like, there's no hesitation. Like to be honest, Stamp special teams coverage was bad last night, but like full marks to Alford because he took advantage. I mean, it's not.
He broke a Rider record already for most return touchdowns. He's got 6 in his Rider career, and he's been here for like a calendar year, really, because Jeremy O'Day traded for him with when Montreal was like, no, we're going to go with Worthy. He's our guy. So he went out and got Mario Alford, and he's already broken Corey Holmes' record, who's like a Rider legend on return touchdowns, who was here for a lot longer than like 18 games or whatever it's been for Mario Alford. So, but I wanted him in the offense. Like I was saying on when Britton and I do our podcast, I was like, when do we get to see it? Because when Kelly Jeffrey was hired as the offensive coordinator, he would talked about Mario Alford being the guy, like the convertible you take out on a nice summer day and you put the top down and cruise a little bit. But it's not like an every down. He's not like your truck and the dependable everyday type vehicle. He's the, the midlife crisis. And I'm waiting for Kelly Jeffrey to have the midlife crisis and throw Mario Alford out there, because you put that guy in space. Like, what is it? McAllister and Hamilton. Like you have a return.
Well, Brandon Banks a couple years ago, right?
Brandon Banks. He was returning, and it's like, get that guy in space, put him in your offense. So that's my request to Kelly Jeffrey is try to get Mario Alford involved in the
I
offense.
want to see it too. Would he be like right? I mean, I guess prior to yesterday probably would have been Harris, but like if you were guessing who sells the most jerseys in Regina right now, is it Alford?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
Because Harris would have been in there. The Canadians like Kean Schaefer Baker, people will really like Kean Schaefer Baker. Defensive players, Larry Dean is a popular guy. I haven't seen a lot of Nick Marshall jerseys. I don't know why. All the guy does is close games out. I know he gives up a big play every once in a while, but I think those guys. But I think you might see some more number twos getting sold now after 2 punt return touchdowns and breaking a Rider record.
On a slightly more serious note, have we heard anything about Trevor Harris?
No.
Obviously twisted the knee pretty bad. I mean, it didn't look good, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but when the cart comes out,
I know.
That's that's when you go, okay. Because usually if it's a torn ACL or something, they do some of the testing on the field and see what movement it has, and you see him limp off but when you saw was it Wigan who rolled on him? I think it was right. It was Wigan who rolls on the leg, but then there's a twist, and the way he awkwardly fell, it was all sorts of things going. That's a heavy man on your leg.
Yeah, clearly no
with
intent
the torque.
Wigan
Oh no, absolutely. I think he got kicked by his own teammate to make him roll. He knocked him over, right? So but it does suck. Like the CFL, the last couple of seasons, like when Cody Fajardo was the league's leading passer, it was because everybody else was hurt, and so it sucks. It really sucks because
and just in back-to-back weeks to have Mazzoli and then Harris, and like I do think whatever else has gone right in Saskatchewan, just having that like composed leader who doesn't panic when a couple things don't go his way has been a huge part of the turnaround this year.
Yeah, is absolutely it has, and it's just his demeanor. It is remarkable to see already his teammates just rally around him in like 6 weeks, really, or 7 weeks. Because he missed a week of training camp for the birth of his son. So it was like how much he's already galvanized the group a little bit. So we'll see what happens next. But it sucks because Rider fans were really starting to adore Trevor Harris and what he was bringing to the organization.
But I mean, it was so no matter what, it sucks. There's no but there. I don't want this to be like but I mean, it wasn't much, but Mason Fine looked pretty great out there. No, admittedly, I think
he didn't. Danny, don't be fooled by a 69-yard
that the Stampeders screwed up so badly.
Yeah, like Mason Fine went out there and he got sacked a few times, and he threw a couple of swing passes to Morrow, who got some yardage. He threw a nice pass to Picton, but.
Okay, fine. I was trying to like not be the Calgary reporter.
But Mason Fine was okay, and he got out of 115 yards or whatever it was 69 of them were on that. It was on one ridiculous play.
Stat lines don't tell you everything, although it is nice to have them. Thank you, Genius Sports. 6 for 8 for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns looks pretty good. I'm not saying, I mean, for anyone who didn't watch the game, they're definitely going to look at it and be
like the Jamal Morrow touchdown, though.
I know
it was a little pass and Morrow walked in. That's a good play call. That's a great play call.
Yeah, that's a nice play. And nicely executed.
And nicely executed blocking and receivers downfield. And the way Kelly Jeffrey called the game for Mason Fine was more impressive than I would say Mason Fine was at quarterback. But now he gets a week. Like now you dig in. Now you get the reps. Now what do you do? Oh, sorry. Who are you up against? The best damn defense in the Canadian Football League with Matthew Betts' 9 sacks already this season, which
That's
is insane.
What I mean, at this point, are you with Trevor Harris out? I mean, it's not like you're going to go and there's not other quarterbacks out there, really. I mean,
McLeod Bethel Thompson doesn't want to play in Ottawa. Does he want to play in Saskatchewan? Or
that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. You think that's a possibility?
No, but
okay.
It's fun to talk about on a radio show.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, it's other than that, I think people will always say Dane Evans, and I just don't believe that the Lions are giving up
Well,
their
look,
reliable backup.
Bo Levi Mitchell, Jeremiah Masoli, Trevor Harris. Rick Campbell's not going to go, you know what? Let's get rid of our safety valve right now to a
Yeah.
division opponent. And because they
Quarterbacks are
need Dane
dropping like
Evans.
flies, but we're going to
Yeah.
give up our
Yeah,
backup.
exactly. Not a chance. They
No.
signed Dane Evans for a reason. And good on him. And it was something I was like with Trevor Harris. I was like, the Riders need to go out and get a Matthew Schultz, or can they? I don't know if Dane Evans would have worked out financially with the Trevor Harris contract, but we're all waiting in Saskatchewan to see something out of these backups. Mason Fine's been underwhelming, I think, for the fans. They really like Jake Dolegala. The
I don't
fan
think
base
you're giving him.
really loves Jake Dolegala.
I don't think you're giving Mason Fine enough credit for looking at that Stampeders defensive backfield and picking the 3 DBs to throw it into, knowing that they would, instead of knock it down, for some reason, just knock it up in the air. I think recognizing that throwing into triple coverage, picking the correct 3 DBs to do it to is hard.
Yeah, like, okay, sure. But Tevin Jones, though, on that play,
That's
like,
unbelievable.
like when he gives that little like bump into the back of Moxie, which throws him off a little bit. I was wondering if Dave Dickinson had a challenge and a timeout left. If he challenges for offensive pass, he probably would have, and he might have won it with Tevin Jones' a little bump to the back of those guys.
He might have
right
won
when
it,
they
but
were
I
going
don't
in.
want that called, to be honest.
No,
Like that's yeah, I don't want that called. Let them play football.
I hate to agree with Daryl Davis, but I'm like, I'm kind of sick of reviews now. Like,
I know.
just play the game.
Yeah.
There's mistakes. Refs are humans too. Move on. Like the automatic reviews with turnovers. Okay, I live with those, but like the challenges on sometimes ticky tack calls. What was the game? Was it Montreal Toronto? There was like a pass interference call, which was like, okay, like
It feels like
yeah,
it's every game, and it's not like my whole thing is that I want the rules to be consistent with what like kids would be playing on some level, like what kids on the playground. And I'm sorry,
yeah.
like tapping a guy on the shoulder that has no impact on his ability to catch the ball should not, in my opinion, be pass interference. I think that the rules are way too strict.
Oh, and then you see it when they slow it down in slow motion. There it is. Oh yeah, I guess so. Got to call it.
Yeah.
I
No,
like
the
these.
most
Like the CFL is doing a good job speeding up games, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when it gets slowed down and muddied by challenges and stuff, I'm like, man, this game could have been over in like 2.5 hours. We could be
I
at the
don't
bar already. What's happening?
I imagine you didn't watch the TSN feed, and like I honestly it was actually a really good broadcast yesterday, but it's so funny how like that ref was pretty quick with his calls and announcing them, and the TSN guys loved it so much. It was just constantly comments on like these guys are going really fast. We look at this.
Yeah.
So
Speed
good on
it
you,
along.
Dustin. Yeah. Can I ask from an outsider perspective, what was it like watching a Stampeders team that 95% of the time looks good and then just massively screws up a couple times a game?
Well, for me, I was like, I know I'm looking at it at a rider's perspective, but when I watch Jake Mayer, especially, I'm like, he's got it, and then he doesn't, and you're like, what is going on? Like, there's a couple of drives downfield where he's got the time and he picks the defense apart, and then he makes some throws where you're like, what? We're all looking around like, where is he going with that football? What was that? Was he it almost looks like he's throwing it away. Like that's the frustrating thing. That's why I picked Calgary, is because I'm like, Jake Mayer is not this bad. He is not a 2 touchdown, 6 interception guy. The law of averages are going to start to, work out. So but then he's like,
you said it at halftime, though. You tweeted it. You were just like, the difference here has been the pressure.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Jake deals with pressure particularly well at all. And I do think he did last season, which is sort of strange. But the second that the Riders sort of started just pushing the pace a little bit with the defensive line, I did feel like that's where we saw Jake struggle. I mean, he still finished with 315 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I don't know what
200 in the first half.
I know. He was really
like
good in the first
half. It helped when 3 of those plays were wide open receivers because the Riders secondary was just bad. Like they missed Roland Milligan in that football game. The communication was all over the place. Like So that helps Jake Maier's numbers too. But he was good in the first half, but the Riders didn't get to him. They started to get to him in the second half, and he's one of those quarterbacks. Well, who was it? Was it Amondo Sewell who talked about Trevor Harris? Like, all you have to do is hit him, and it's game over pretty much. It's similar with Jake Maier. It looks like
Yeah.
you start hitting him, and he starts overthinking it or trying to get the ball out way quicker than he's got time for.
It's when Nick Arbuckle came in for the Stampeders in 2019. He got sacked a bunch, and I had written a story on the offensive line. This is a long way of getting to my point, but about how badly the offensive line was playing, and I believe it was Shane Bergman. One of the offensive linemen came up. It wouldn't have been Shane Bergman. I shouldn't say who it was, but came up to me and sort of explained. He was like, the thing that no one gives Bo credit for is like Bo doesn't run, but he's moving in the pocket and like reading the way that the defensive line is coming and just able to completely manipulate the pocket in that way to like give himself time. And I don't know that Jake is doing that just yet. I also thought that was the first time where the Stampeders had their actual like what resembled their legitimate receiving crew, and I think that did make a difference.
In without Malik Henry, but
I mean they replaced Malik with Mark and Michelle. Like there's not a huge drop off there. Like Markin was a star his first 2 seasons here.
Okay, show me some more Tommy Lee Lewis too. By the way,
man, did he look good? Eh?
Like he's will you put Michelle and Lewis all of a sudden in that receiving core, and Luther Hakanavanu? Did I get it right?
Yes,
did I get it right?
Yeah. All you have to do is just say it the way it's spelled. It's you did a great job, is what I'm saying. I don't know how people struggle with it, but you did it correctly.
Well, it's harder to do when it's not right in front of you, but anyways, like you start to see that receiving core coming together, and you're like, "Ooh, they got some talent here, right?" So, when I going into this game, I was really thinking like, this is usually the point of the season where those 1-3, 1-4 teams start to go on some runs and look a lot better than they were in the first third of the season, and some of the teams that are higher in the standings start to show their blemishes a little bit. And I picked Calgary to be that team out of the lower crop of teams going. It's the Stampeders who are going to rise here and get to 500 some way, somehow, because, sorry, Dave Dickinson's too good of a coach. The talent on that team is too good. Like that. I know they lose Jameer Thurman, but Mike Alway has been,
man, he's good.
Great.
Yeah.
Like they've been able to fill some holes, and even their secondary is good. Vaughters has been great.
Vaughters just stepped it up. I mean,
Sean Lemon, right?
Mike Rose also had his like Mike Rose game yesterday, where it's like, okay, now you're actually in shape and just dominating guys. I mean, I largely agree. I to be honest, I mean, if Trevor Harris was healthy, I would not have been picking the Riders to fall off. And I hope that they figure it out. It's just, can we do the thing that's going to bother people as the Calgary and the Saskatchewan reporters?
What?
Bombers aren't quite the same.
Well, of course
they talk about what happened yesterday. Like, what happened to the Bombers?
They fell asleep. That's what happened.
You think that's it, eh?
And plus, what they did, and I don't know why Richie called it that way, is I appreciate some people say stay aggressive, but when you have a scrambling quarterback and you send 8 and nobody gets there, well, guess what? Only 4 guys are left to tackle the scrambling quarterback. And that Dustin Crum started to eat him up with his legs a little bit there. And that's what I look at. But just like everybody, so here's the thing, Danny. You remember it. You got choked up. I imagine Jeff Hamilton will watch this and go, "Stop it, you guys. Stop talking about the Bombers. They're still good guys. Like, leave us alone. The Bombers are good." But it's the same thing what happened in Calgary. Everybody wanted to be the first guy to go, "Oh, the Stampeders are done," just so they could be the first guy to say the Stampeders are done. And then they were back in a damn Grey Cup, and I was losing stippy bets to podcasters in Calgary.
He's my next guest, by the way. He's coming on right after you.
The bearded wonder.
Yeah, he's in Florida. He just wrote me yesterday. He was like, "Man, I want to talk." And I was like, "Cool, let's do it."
Can you
I am
ask
not
him
saying
about
the Bombers are done.
You need to ask him. No, you need to ask him about eating pancakes on Amazing Race Canada. I was really intrigued by that. How many pancakes did he actually consume
Well, I mean,
during Amazing Race Canada?
let's get him on. Should be on any second. You can do the interview. I do want to be clear. I'm not saying the Bombers are done, like at all. I still probably would pick them to come out of the West. I just do think that like what happened against the Lions and then what
Yep.
happened last night didn't happen in previous seasons.
That
Yeah.
offensive line is not as like nowhere near as good. Like
Yeah.
they used to truck over teams. They're not doing it anymore. Like Stanley Bryant should not be how many I almost swore. How many offensive lineman of the year awards has he won in a row? Like 3 or 4?
Something like that.
Last year was a joke that he won because nobody knew how to vote. So
yeah, well, if Derek Dennis had been healthy for the whole year, he probably would have won last year.
Joel Figueroa was a better offensive lineman than Stanley Bryant in BC last year. Like there were other options, and yeah, they lose their center. Coachers now in BC. So that hurts. Trust me, we've been watching it in Saskatchewan going through centers recently with Dan Clark to Logan Bandy to Peter Godber back to Logan Bandy, and it impacts the team. So and they lose Desjardins, right? So they've lost a bunch on the offensive line. They're just not that strong.
That's also the thing. Like when people ask me about like, oh, the Stamps lost Thurman, they lost Javian Elliott, who's a hell of a DB out in Hamilton now. Like Fuller and Ormalata. It's like, yeah, but guys, like, do you not want them to have Sean McEwen at center? Like, do you know how hard it is to find a Sean McEwen? Like, it's such an important position.
Huge. That was a huge signing for the Stampeders when they got McEwen away from Toronto.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And I mean, it's also bringing him back to Calgary, so he's a guy who will re-sign here again and again and again. Yeah, I again do not think they're done. I would still pick them in a playoff game against everybody, but I
don't know about everybody. Like Toronto, BC I would put they're on my power rankings above Winnipeg, and now I think it's Toronto, BC, and Winnipeg's like at the top of the next tier now almost. Are they the top 3
anyone
tier?
from Winnipeg crazy? I think we should bring Ryan Ballantine in. Are you down with that?
Yeah, we can talk about sippy cups.
Here we go, Ryan Ballantine.
Okay, I have a question for Ryan Ballantine. Oh, I have a question for Ryan Ballantine. How many pancakes did you consume during the taping of Amazing Race Canada?
0. Every time they finally delivered our correct pancakes, they made that another team would come in and they'd be like, we don't know, they might choose your table, and they'd rip the pancakes away. I got 0 pancakes. I was there for 8 hours.
That's terrible. That's a lawsuit. Isn't that a lawsuit? That should be a lawsuit.
I did get my $50 cash though, and I just thought it would be fun to be in the background and have people be like, wait, isn't that Ryan from Big Brother Canada? Why is he just sitting there eating pancakes? So I thought it would be fun to go down and do it. It was worth it.
Are you amazing. Are you like on a ride, like in a line, or what's going on right now?
No, I am currently at the Vineland Premium Outlet Mall. It's the day between parks. Did Disney World for 4 days. I got Universal for the next 3 days. But today is the day to just wander the outlet malls and go shopping.
Right
on. Jamie, man, I feel like I should let you go here.
Before I get bombarded by a 5-year-old who's like, he was really intrigued by the podcast light that I have and everything else. So
yeah. Well, and before I like completely go way over my come on for half an hour thing, but I don't want people to feel like I'm just abusing their kindness. But man, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, right on. Are you hanging up on me or am I hanging up on you? I don't know.
I think you hang up on me probably. I've never actually done this 3 people on a feed. So if you hang up on me, that'd be great.
Okay. Later, boys. See you later.
See you, Jamie.
Yep, he's gone. All right, Ryan, man. I read your article on 3 Down Nation this morning.
Well, that's good.
I thought you did a great job. What's your take? Give me your number 1 takeaway from last night's game between the Stamps and the Riders.
If not for Mario Alford, that game is an embarrassment for the Riders. I think they got absolutely beat up last night, offensively and defensively. And if Mario Alford doesn't score those 2 touchdowns, I think the doom and gloom over Riderville would be a lot heavier than it probably is today. They're probably saying right now, we got unlucky because Rene Paredes comes out and kicks the last-second field goal after we took the lead. But, I mean, the Hail Mary touchdown was a 1-in-a-million touchdown. The Alford returns don't happen every day, especially against this team, although it's happened frequently this season. I just think that the Riders really, the score flattered them in every single direction.
I love you coming in hot like this. It's I will say my counterpoint to that would be that right now big special teams plays against the Stampeders are not a bug, they're a feature. I think that this team is losing the field position battle on special teams, and it's an area where they're vulnerable, unfortunately. So I think that yes, Alford deserves all the credit, but there's 3 phases to this game, and the Stampeders special teams coverage is just not where it needs to be for them to beat better teams than the Riders.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at their special teams, it's either 0 or a touchdown. They're not allowing those kind of 15, 20-yard runs. If you get past the Stampeders' first wave, you've got a good chance at scoring this year. Otherwise, it's not happening. So I think it's glaring when you say, oh, well, look at all these touchdowns. But what they're not giving up is those 15, 20, 25-yard returns that they've been getting from their returners themselves. So
no, and I think that's a really strong point.
That these touchdowns are there. Yeah,
it's a strong point that I to be honest,
they're not.
You go.
Okay. I think it's just one of those things where the averages now look bad because of those touchdowns. But if you take the touchdowns out, their averages are actually pretty good.
Fair enough. They do still exist, and they are, the touchdowns are happening. I think I wrote something similar in my story yesterday, although my story was a complete mess because of the last 2.5 minutes of that game. So I may have cut it out, but I do think that you're right, that it's sort of all or nothing. It's a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde on that special teams coverage. I think that if fans, I recognize that Jake Mayer was not perfect yesterday. I'm not saying that. I don't know that he was out there playing at an MOP level, but you have to be encouraged by the step forward that this offense took yesterday, and Jake in particular, right? I mean, this was a little more, particularly the first half, and then getting to the field position where Rene could kick that final field goal. I think the offense deserves some credit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more you want from Jake Mayer if 300 passing yards with 2 touchdowns isn't enough. I mean, yes, the interception was ill-advised, but it was still tipped. It wasn't directly into the chest of a defender that we have seen earlier this season. It was kind of a hope and prayer throw, and I think he had built the confidence with the receivers who had been coming down with those balls in the first half to just kind of throw it up there and see what happens. Not the wisest choice in that moment, but if that's the mistake you want to hang on Jake for last night, I don't think that that's a problem, and I don't think the Stampeders are upset about a 300-yard, 2-touchdown performance from their starting quarterback. You get that every single week, you're going to win more often than you're not in this league.
Yeah, I think that if people focus on the one mistake instead of the genuine huge step forward in terms of him spreading the ball out, in terms of him going to Reggie in big moments. I mean, man, I'm excited about Tommy Lee Lewis. It's this is why they kept him on the neg list for half a decade, I really think my first glance at that guy in game action, his speed is just different. And the idea of when Mark and Michelle fully gets going, being able to sort of rotate those guys in and out, having Reggie, I do think trade Odom Stokes. I honestly think that this offense is starting to come together, and you've got a winnable game against Ottawa, and then a game against Montreal that I do think you need to win. But when I see the D-line get 7 sacks, that had been pressuring quarterbacks had been an issue earlier in the year. That's a huge step forward. I think that there were, other than the special teams mistakes, and frankly, a hilarious Hail Mary. I know that if you're a coach, you're probably mad about it, but that was absolutely I laughed out loud when it happened. I couldn't believe it. But I think the Stampeders team is really good, and they just have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot a little bit on a couple plays a game.
Yeah, I mean, even when you listen to Dave Dickinson's interview with the postgame yesterday, he was like, even Tammy knows you knock that down. I thought that was pretty funny. Just
Tammy is his wife.
Yeah, invoking his wife to say, that even Tammy knows you just knocked that ball down. I thought that was pretty funny. And then his just saying right out that he was pissed about it. I thought that also entertained me just a little bit. Dickinson seems to be getting looser in his post-game press conferences now that he's got the dual chair. He's always kind of been forthright in a good quote, but he's getting better right now, I think, for my money. But, I mean, how often are you going to see – if you see that touchdown, you're going to see that touchdown on highlight reels forever in Riderville if they win that game. If that touchdown stood to be the winning points, that's their Dustin Crum moment of the season, whereas now because they lost the game, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because, they lost. So you can get all the Hail Marys you want and walk away with the win. How much do they really matter?
I mean, that's the nature of football. The amazing plays are only remembered when your team wins. And like that
Absolutely.
dates back to time immemorial. It's just the reality of the sport that we love. Speaking of which, I know you're in Florida. I can't imagine you spent your entire day yesterday watching CFL football, but like, man, Ottawa Red Blacks, what a shocker.
I managed to get back to the hotel just in time for the comeback. It was incredible. I was sitting there streaming the game, which I wasn't able to do with the Stamps. So thank goodness for the global audio vault or whatever. I could listen to Mark and I could listen to Mark's call of the game on a radio and imagine what it looked like, and then watch highlights after the fact online. But watching that comeback from Ottawa was fantastic. I mean, it was exactly what the Red Blacks need. And it was a jolt in the arm to a fan base that has really taken a kicking over the last couple of years. And not for nothing, shows that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are ultimately vulnerable, and they're not the old Wally Buono line was better to blow something up a year too early than a year too late. And we may be finding out that this is the year where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are getting blown up 1 year too late.
I love that Jamie and I had a little bit of this conversation. I'm not willing to say that I actually think the Bombers are quite a good team that just like need some fixes. They're just not the complete and total train that they were the last couple of years. Like
exactly. But if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. And right now, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers appear to be sliding.
I love that this is the stance that we're all taking here. I honestly strongly disagree, but what I will say is that I look at the league right now, and other than the Toronto Argonauts, who are 4-0, there's 5 teams that are 2-3 or 3-2. The Bombers are 4-2. It's basically, I did this whole tiered thing with Ian Busby on last podcast. I'm beginning to think it's the Argos in the top tier, probably with the Lions, and then the Elks in the bottom tier. And it might be everyone else fighting in the middle. And that's a nice place for the league to be.
Absolutely. I think parity is important for these guys to go across and be able to sell the league. If you want to sell the league, you need parity. You need the chance that everyone could win every week. You shouldn't be able to go perfect and pick them every week. There should be a surprise. And what the nice thing about those surprises is they make it a much more entertaining game to watch. I mean, hell, we got to watch a game won on a kickoff rouge 2 weeks ago. And how spectacular is that? We get to see the craziest stuff happening in the CFL. And the idea that any team could win any game any week is good for the league. It's good for the fans. It's good for the ratings, all of those things.
Final question before I let you go. Let us pretend that the Stampeders, as an organization, decided for the first time in 10 years that they were going to do a Wall of Fame inductee again, add someone. They've just decided that to stop doing that for some reason. I mean, that was just, to be honest, that was a terrible opening because I just want to ask you about Rene Paredes because, man, like 10 game-winning last-second field goals in his career. The guy is working as a firefighter full time and then just showing up at Stamps practice and kicking the ball around, and does that last night. I mean, like, contextualize what, as a Stampeders fan at this point, Rene Paredes means to you and to this organization and this fan base.
I think much like when we watched Doug Flutie play for the Stampeders and you realize that this was the greatest quarterback that has ever played in the league, that's what we're seeing with Rene Paredes. Rene Paredes is the greatest kicker to ever lace up a pair of cleats and step onto a CFL field. And anybody who wants to bring their Justin Medlock nonsense into this conversation can turn around and walk right back out the door. Rene Paredes is the CFL's greatest kicker of all time. End of sentence. There's no equivocation. There's no argument. This guy is the best. He's on pace right now for another 90% season. If you look at accurate seasons in CFL history, he owns the top of the list. Rene Paredes has currently 6 of the top 10 most accurate seasons of all time. Of all time, 6 out of 10. The guy is absolutely a monster. He is a machine. He does everything you want him to do. Every time your kicker goes out there, you expect them to get the field goal. In Calgary, that's even more so. When he misses, what happened? Because that's what we know Rene Paredes brings. The guy's automatic. He's the greatest of all time. And Stamps fans should be applauding their asses off when he comes back to Calgary and they finally celebrate what they should have been celebrating before when he moved up in the record books. Rene Paredes is, I can only hope that firefighting keeps him busy enough that he can just keep kicking for another 20 years and go Louis Pasaglia and just own the whole thing. Just keep going, show up on game day and kick your way into Louis' shoes.
I knew that I could count on you to just come in with the fire takes. Even from Florida. I love it. I'm sure that there are going to be fan bases or fans from other fan bases who listen to that and are like, I hate Ryan and Danny. Why am I listening to this pro Stampeders podcast? But that's why I have guests on, because they say it, not me. But I look, what I know, right. And I am gonna let you go. What I know to add to that is just when the game's on the line, there's no one in history who I'd rather have it on their foot than Rene Paredes. And I do
absolutely
believe that.
Absolutely.
You go enjoy Florida. Is this an anniversary? Like, I know you're celebrating an anniversary with your wife. Is this an anniversary trip where you just decided to come and talk football on a podcast?
Yes, the wife and I have spent 20 years together, and she has now spent 20 minutes sitting on the ground next to me in this mall waiting for me to finish here. So I want to thank her for 20 years of happiness and 20 minutes of indulgence as we celebrate our anniversary trip. It's a heck of a good time. And I don't know if I can flip the camera here. No, all I can do is turn it off. But there she is down there, my wife and son, as they wait for us to continue our trip here.
Thank you for allowing this. Happy anniversary. Guys, goodbye. Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right. That was Ryan Ballantine. We had Jamie Nye on before. Jamie from CJME in Regina. Really appreciated his time. And then Ryan, obviously, apparently he's on a bunch of reality shows. I didn't realize he was on Amazing Race Canada, but he does write for 3 Down Nation, which I really appreciate. He does some great content there. And I don't know, he hosts the Go Stamps Go podcast. Check that out if you're a Stampeders fan. As anyone who listening can tell, he is unabashedly pro Stampeders. And good for them. I will say that our guests are brought to you by Fraser and Fig. I'm just going to do the ad read straight up here, not sort of tell my story about having a picnic a couple weeks ago. I know everyone loves my picnic stories, but yeah, they do these delicious elevated cheese and charcuterie boards and boxes made with fresh artisanal provisions for on-demand grazing, for pickup or delivery. Honestly, check these guys out. They do these boxes. It's all local, it's all artisanal. They got 4 sizes, small, big. I mean, everything in between. Individual to party size. All the boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, and carrots. And their selections vary month to month. We really appreciate Fraser and Figure. They're just down the road from our studio here. So at some point, as I've said, apparently with Ian Busby and John Bender, 2 regular guests. I think we're just gonna sit here. We're gonna get on camera, just 3 grown men eating charcuterie. You guys can watch. I'm sure it'll be a hit. That's how we drive traffic here at Live from the 55, just by eating on air. Anyways, guys, this is we only got a couple minutes left here. I'm gonna take a quick look ahead at week 7. I feel very confident looking ahead. You got 4 games: Edmonton and Winnipeg first. In Winnipeg, Toronto, Hamilton, Saskatchewan, BC, Ottawa, Calgary. There's some fun games here. Honestly, I don't think that Winnipeg Edmonton is fun. I think that's going to make me very sad. It is. That's just about as rough a matchup for a hopeless Edmonton team as you can get. I don't know, man. I said last week Winnipeg Ottawa game is going to be a massacre. It wasn't, but I have a lot more faith in that Ottawa team than I do in anything happening at Edmonton. Fix it. I hope it gets fixed. Feel bad for all the fans in Edmonton. I feel bad for the players on the field and the people in the offices there doing good work. It just doesn't seem to be coming together, and it makes me very sad. Toronto, Hamilton. Look, I think Toronto's the best team in the league. I think Hamilton's made some progress, and I do know that game. That game would appear to be in Hamilton. Probably should check that, but based on my understanding, that game is in Hamilton. I think the Ticats have made some strides. I like that defense. I know that when those 2 teams play, it's always a war. So that would be a fun one. That's actually one that I'm really looking forward to. If I was in the GTA, I would make sure I was there. Again, I feel like every team now just wants to knock off the Argos. I think that they've sort of established themselves as the cream of the crop, and when that happens, you have a bullet or you have a target on your back. So that one's fun. Saskatchewan, BC, very. This would be different if Trevor Harris was healthy. Maybe he is. Maybe he miraculously is not out for an extended period after that scary injury yesterday. Hard not to pick BC there. And then Ottawa, Calgary. Hey man, I'm not picking against this Red Blacks team. I'm not picking against the Stampeders team either. I'm just looking forward to this one. This is my job to cover this, so I probably shouldn't be making a pick. It's not really my job, but I do think, honestly, I'm not writing off the Red Blacks. I like what the Red Blacks did. You beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you gain my respect. Ryan was talking a little bit about the Bombers falling off. Jamie and I had a little fun with it. I still think that they are an elite football team, and that they have that just like sort of veteran understanding of how to win football games. It didn't happen against the Red Blacks. Obviously they got smacked around a little bit by the Lions a few weeks ago, but this is still the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So when the Red Blacks beat them, that said something to me. That showed me that this team's got that fight. It's got that dog. I can't pick the Stampeders just because the Red Blacks. I mean, look, they have identical records, don't they? Yeah. What am I doing? It's not like these two. It's not like the Stamps are a powerhouse and the Red Blacks are sort of a bottom feeder. They're both 2-3. So that should actually be a good game. That should be a fun game. Looking forward to that one. That is Saturday at 5 p.m. I guess. Yeah. So is it Sunday? What is that? Guys, this is terrible podcasting, but we're just going to quickly check the Stampeder schedule because that's the 23rd. And this it's Sunday at 5. Wow. It's my job to know that. That's good to know. That really actually affects how I go about my week. We're going to have to figure out a schedule for this podcast next week. I'm not sure we're going to be recording on Sunday. We may be recording on Monday. Either way, we'll let you know on Thursday's episode. Guys, this is Live from the 55, brought to you by Fraser and Fig. I am Danny Austin. I super appreciate you guys listening. Please tell your friends. Please tell your family. Please tell your enemies if that's really what you got to do. But would love to, want to keep providing this content for you. And we super appreciate everyone listening and watching. Thank you so much. You guys are the best.